Some time after the birth of Ishmael, the Lord God made another covenant with Abram, the covenant of circumcision, where every single male of Abram's household was circumcised on the flesh of their foreskin. And on that day, the Lord changed Abram's name to Abraham and his wife Sarai's name to Sarah. Sometime after this, Abraham sat in his tent near the great trees of Mamre when he saw 3 men standing nearby. Knowing that these were no ordinary men, but the divine in the form of men, Abraham arose and ran to meet them, and bowing low to the ground, he welcomed them into his home, saying, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Allow me to bring some water, so that you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me also get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed and then be on your way, now that you have come to your servant." And the men replied, "Very well, do as you say." So Abraham hurried back to the tent and said to Sarah, "Hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough, and bake some bread." Then Abraham ran out to the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. When the food was ready, he took some yogurt and milk and the roasted meat and served it to the men. And as they ate, he stood under the shade of the trees waiting for them. But one of the men, who was the Lord himself, asked, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" "She's inside the tent," replied Abraham. And the Lord said, "I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. She knew that she and her husband Abraham were already very old, and that she was past the age of childbearing. And so, hearing the words of the visitors, she laughed silently to herself and said in her heart, "How could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my husband is also so old?" And the Lord questioned Sarah, saying, "Sarah, why did you laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?'" And Sarah replied, "I did not laugh, for she was afraid." But the Lord said to her, "Yes, you laughed. Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And he said again to Abraham, "I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Then the 3 men rose from there and looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. 2 of the men continued on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah, while the Lord remained with Abraham. And the Lord said to Abraham, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous. We go down to see if their actions are as wicked as have been heard or not." And Abraham asked, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sake? Surely you would not do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Surely you would not do that. Should the judge of all the earth not do what is right?" And the Lord answered, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I will spare the entire cities for their sake." And Abraham said, "Now that I have dared to speak to the Lord, even though I am nothing but dust and ashes, I pray you, let me speak further. What if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people?" And the Lord replied, "If I find 45 there, I will not destroy it." "What if there are only 40? asked Abraham. "I will not destroy it for the sake of the 40, replied the Lord. But Abraham persisted, saying, "Oh, let the Lord not be angry, and I will speak. What if 30 are found there? I will not do it if I find 30 there, replied the Lord. And Abraham again said, "Since I have dared to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 are found there?" And the Lord answered, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." But again Abraham pleaded, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" And the Lord replied, "Then for the sake of the 10, I will not destroy it." And with this the Lord departed, while Abraham returned to his tent.